First step in completing the square is going to be to place the constant on one side of the equation. The second step, divide each term by the coefficient of the squared variable. Third is to create the magic number by multiplying the coefficient of the linear term by 1/2 and squaring this number. This is what I call the magic number. So this magic number is now going to be added to both sides of the equation to produce a perfect square on one side of the equation. And then you continue to solve by taking the square root. Let's practice one more problem with this, and then we will talk a little bit about this method. In that, let's put in a fraction. Suppose we have 2x squared minus 4/3 x minus 2 equals 0. Okay? So we're going to use completing the square. All right, first thing we do is to take the constant to the other side. 2x squared minus 4/3 x equals 2. The coefficient of the square term, the square variable. Okay, so we're going to have 2 divided by 2x squared minus, when we divide the fraction by 2, we're going to end up with 4 over 2 times 3x equals 2 over 2 on the right-hand side. Okay, let me simplify this and I'll get back to this term right here. We have an x squared minus 2 over 2 times 3x equals 2/2, which would be 1. Let me show you why times 3. If we have a 4 over 3, and if I divide by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2, right? Dividing this fraction by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. But you remember that when you multiply fractions, you multiply numerators and multiply denominators. And so that's why the 2 ends up being in the denominator as a factor of the denominator. Well, we can simplify this middle term by saying 2 goes into 4 twice, and so we now have x squared minus 2/3 x equals 1. Now we're ready for the next step. We need to take the coefficient of the x term, which in this case is minus 2/3. We're going to multiply it by 1/2, and we're going to be squaring it. Okay? When we do that, what happens? We're going to have the 2's will cancel off. We'll end up with a negative 1/3 inside. 1/3, we get a 1/9. This is the magic number which we're going to add to each side. Squared minus 2/3 x plus this magic number, and I'll keep putting it in a box so that you can recognize that that's what I'm adding to each side, equals 1 plus 1/9. Okay? The left-hand side now is a perfect square. Because it's a perfect square, and I have a plus sign here, the signs will be the same. They'll both be negatives. We're going to have x minus a number so that when I square, I get x minus 1/3 the quantity squared equals the right-hand side, 1 plus 1/9, where 1 is 9/9 plus 1/9, that would be 10/9. We've succeeded in creating a perfect square on one side. Now let's take the square root of each side. On the left, we'll end up with x minus 1/3. On the right, we're going to have 9/9. Let's continue to solve. X then will be equal to 1/3 plus or minus the square root of 10 over the square root of 9. The method of completing the square. As you can see, this method is fairly involved. We're starting out with an equation. We're first doing a number of steps, taking the constant to the right-hand side, the number, adding the magic number to both sides, creating a perfect square, taking the square root, and finally solving. For error, so it's not the most efficient method for solving a quadratic equation. It will work with any quadratic equation. of this method is that by using this, then we can develop what's called the quadratic formula, a very efficient way of solving quadratic equations. But I wouldn't recommend solving equations using this method, again, because it's too involved. Okay.